Every now and then I watch a cult classic, and it just surprises the hell out of me. So many of you guys have told me, especially Andrew Becker, you need to watch The Monster Squad. And finally, I did watch the DVD, and wow, let's review this. The Monster Squad stars Andre Gower, Robbie Kiger, Tom Noonan, Duncan Rager, and is directed by Fred Decker. What's up, guys? I'm looking forward to doing this review. This is one of those movies that's, I get a lot of these actually, like, I can't believe you haven't seen this movie yet. And Monster Squad. And after I've watched this movie like 3 times now. And I was looking forward to reviewing it. So finally, we're doing that. Big shout out to Andrew Becker, who constantly would push me. And my good friend Barry, who was on Hallowstream Kills. His channel Wolfman's Got Nards. He gets his channel name from this movie. I believe this is Barry's favorite movie. Correct me if I'm wrong, Barry. But I'm sure it's in his top 5. And I can see why. I can definitely see why. One thing that I didn't know was that Fred Decker directed this, and if I would have known that, I probably would have watched this a lot earlier, but one of the biggest things for me was I never even knew much about this movie. It's one of those movies that when it was released, it bombed. It didn't do a great job. I don't know if it was the timing. I don't really understand the reason at all, because it's as good as any of those movies of the type, like, say, Goonies. You know, it's definitely a repeat viewer type of film, and it's just shocking to me that it slipped through the cracks. But that's the great thing about cult movies, you know, they find their audience, and thankfully DVD gives new life to these movies. And now Blu-ray with Shout Factory and Arrow Video, you know, a lot of us horror fans were discovering or even rediscovering these forgotten gems. And this is one of those movies that definitely belongs in that cult classic category. It's so good that I'll definitely be watching it probably every October. My son is a massive fan of the Universal monsters. He loves them. He always talks about them when we go to Universal Studios. He can't get enough of Universal monsters, and he's very hesitant. He's one of those people that it's hard to get him to watch a movie. He's not a horror head like I am, like you guys are. But he does love those Universal monsters, and I told him, I was like, just give this one a chance. I think you'll like it. He ended up really, really enjoying it. But it's one of those movies that gets the Universal monsters right. Every single one of them in this movie, they feel natural. It feels like those classic Universal monsters. And it's hard to beat the classics, the originals, the original Frankenstein's monster, the original Dracula. But this one stands on its own as one of their stories. So anyway, quick plot synopsis. The beginning of this movie, it's 100 years ago from the present day of when this movie came out. There's this great battle between Van Helsing and Dracula. And Van Helsing is trying to control or destroy this amulet. Every 100 years, it becomes vulnerable. And of course, Dracula wins. And so then he goes into hiding, takes the amulet, and hides it away for the next 100 years. So 100 years later, we're introduced to the Monster Squad, this group of kids who are obsessed with the Universal monsters.
I dig it, man.
You know, they love Dracula and Frankenstein's monster, the Mummy, and the Wolfman. So it's 100 years later, all these monsters have come back. And it's a really simple plot. Once the chess pieces are in place, then we just have this really fun movie with these young kids who are forced to pretty much save the world.
You're the lame one.
Focus. Focus.
And right out the gate, I gotta say, this movie had all the makings of a winning formula. With Fred Decker, who really was trying his best to get this movie off the ground. And he had none other than Shane Black write the movie. And Shane Black, this is probably before he became the Shane Black that we all know and love. He wrote Lethal Weapon around the same time. Even if you don't like Shane Black's directed movies, he is a very gifted screenwriter, and he knows characters. He knows how to bring out the best in characters, especially in terms of comedy, and make them just memorable.
Did you ask him? Were you going, Rudy?
I'm in the goddamn club, aren't I?
And that's what he does with this movie. And it's no easy task to take the Universal monsters, you know, these are from 50 years ago, 60 years ago at the time, and include them at the time with these teenagers, much like Stand By Me, like Goonies. But he does such a great job of handling these characters and really making it believable and not making a joke of it, because you could easily fall on your face with a story like this. And I think the first big thing you have to do is you have to cast great actors to play the Universal monsters. And having Duncan Rager and Tom Noonan play Dracula and Frankenstein's monster respectively is just a home run decision. It really was. And what's interesting is for Count Dracula, originally, one of the guys that tried out for it was Liam Neeson. And of course we all know Liam Neeson didn't get the part. And it'd be interesting to see what Liam Neeson could have brought to that role, but I think Duncan Rager did such a great job playing Dracula, taking the character really seriously, not making a joke of him.
Give me the amulet, you bitch!
He commands this respect throughout the whole movie. Plus, they don't show too much of him, you know, he's in it just enough, and he really makes his mark in the end. So he is definitely a huge threat. Frankenstein's monster I found the most interesting because that's a character that you can really screw up. Because at the end of the day, he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. And so casting like veteran actor Tom Noonan from movies like Manhunter, this is a very great actor. He's a method actor, and he took this role of Frankenstein's monster and made him so memorable. And really, he is the heart of the movie, this relationship between Frankenstein and the young girl Phoebe, you know, this little child.
It's okay, you guys. He's friends with us. Come on, don't be chicken shit.
At the end of the movie, when they have the big final showdown and, you know, all the monsters are being sucked back into, we'll call it the vortex, and it's just heartbreaking that Phoebe didn't want him to leave. She loved Frankenstein so much, and bravo to Shane Black for writing some heart into this story. And then while we're talking about the Universal monsters, I'm a big Wolfman fan. He's my favorite of the bunch, and you couldn't have done better than what they did with this. Thanks to the great Stan Winston. There is one of the most memorable, I guess you could call it wolf out moments that I've ever seen on film, when he's in the phone booth. And the guy that plays him is Carl Tybalt, who was in Napoleon Dynamite, played Uncle Rico. But damn good job playing this role, you know, playing this really conflicted character. It kind of reminded me of like, you know, Bruce Banner with the Incredible Hulk. You know, he's just tormented by the fact that he knows he's going to turn into the Wolfman. And it's definitely one of my favorite parts of the movie. There's a joke in there between these kids on how do you kill a werewolf. And they say there's two ways to do it, and they never really give the second answer until like the end of the movie. Because we find out that you can't blow him up. He'll still come together. You have to have a silver bullet. So really there's one way. But then also the kids are so great in this, very memorable. Andrew Gower plays the leader of the kids, and this actor did a great job of just, you know, fitting in that leadership role. Kind of like what River Phoenix did in Stand By Me. All these kids they're different from each other. One that really stuck out to me too was, of course, Horace, the fat kid. They even call him like Fat Kid in the movie.
And you guys, Dracula might be here too. Oh man, Fat Kid farted. Can't you hold it?
Sadly enough, that actor died, I believe in his like early 20s. But he gets like the most memorable line out of the whole movie when he says, "Wolfman's got nards."
Wolfman's got nards.
But he was probably my favorite kid in the movie too. He just had some really fun moments. And we can't forget that "My name is Horace" line. That was just gold.
Fat kid. Good job.
My name is Horace.
But Phoebe, the little sister, she is adorable. And then they have this teenage girl who is the sister of one of the kids, and she plays an essential role in the movie where she's supposed to be the virgin, which is a funny joke that's played at the end.
You're not a virgin, are you? No?
No, what do you mean no?
Well, Steve, but he doesn't count. Doesn't count!
Shane Black has a way of bringing jokes around later in the movie, and he does such a great job with this, especially with her character. And then, of course, you got the treehouse. When I was a kid, I always wanted a treehouse. For some reason, treehouses, they're just like kind of a time capsule. You know, I think even when we grow up, if we had a treehouse when we were a kid, if we go back home and that treehouse is still there and we go in there, it takes us back. It takes us back to that innocence. And I think that's what the treehouse represented in the movie. But you do have this like Van Helsing type character, this German neighbor that the kids run into, and he's the one that tells them and the audience this whole story of 100 years ago and the amulet and what it all means. And I found him interesting too because he was a little creepy. So a lot of fun there. And then, of course, the finale at the church. This was the section of the movie I like to call the Spielberg section. It just felt like something that you would see in a Spielberg movie. I was getting like strong Poltergeist vibes from it, but in the best way. But this is just one of those movies that there's not a dry spot in it. It has something for the whole family, which is awesome. You know, kids will love this movie, but also adults will have a blast with this movie. Even the smallest characters in the Monster Squad, they stake their claim. They have these nice signature moments via Shane Black. And I can't recommend this movie enough. If you have never seen the Monster Squad, I might be one of the few. I highly recommend it. Add it to your October watch list. It's so much fun, or really any time of the year. I'm giving this movie a Trapped on an Island. It's that good. It surprised me. And it's nice when a movie that's this old that I've never seen, you know, is that good. I really enjoyed it. So anyway, guys, post your thoughts on the Monster Squad in the comments. Looking forward to hearing them. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays, we do Free for All Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.